Hello everybody and welcome to this video. It's the continuation on this festive series on A Christmas Carol. Everything you see in this video comes from Mr. Bruff's Guide to A Christmas Carol, written by Georgina Bottomley, available at mrbruff.com and amazon.co.uk. For just £3.99 it contains the complete novella alongside detailed analysis on everything you need to know. So we're going to start looking at the characters and analysing those, beginning with Ebenezer Scrooge. In the ebook there's also a sample essay which explores his transformation, but I'm not going to put that in the video series, so you'll have to get the guide for that. So Ebenezer Scrooge then is the protagonist of the novella, and we follow his journey from a miserable penny pincher to a man who realises the error of his ways and transforms into a more caring and compassionate citizen. Dickens uses Scrooge to criticise the divide between those who have money and those who do not. Now, Scrooge is a lonely character at the beginning of the novella, and Dickens's use of language reflects this when outlining his relationship with his former clerk. Scrooge was the sole executor, his sole administrator, his sole assign, his sole residuary legatee, his sole friend and sole mourner. The repetition of the word soul adds emphasis to the solitary nature of the lives led by Marley and now by Scrooge, and Dickens sums him up as a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. The collection of verbs here defines Scrooge as a character whose intention is to grab every last penny he can from anyone he encounters. Now, Scrooge is described as hard and sharp as flint, and thanks to this simile, he seems to have a hard exterior which could cause pain to others. Similarly, Scrooge is described as solitary as an oyster, and that simile, unlike the first, does suggest that there may be more to be discovered where Scrooge is concerned. Just as when forced open, an oyster may contain a pearl, so Dickens suggests there may be something worthwhile to be found within Scrooge too. There's also a literal and metaphorical coldness associated with the early description of Scrooge. A frosty rime was on his head, and on his eyebrows and his wiry chin he carried his own low temperature about with him. Dickens' use of language again emphasises Scrooge's cold-hearted nature and attitude towards others. Now, Scrooge rejects his nephew Fred's best wishes with a bar humbug, that most famous quotation, refusing to give any money to the two gentlemen who were off to collect for the poor, and he resists giving his clerk Bob Cratchit any time off for Christmas, saying it's not convenient. But when faced with Marley's ghost, we finally see a more vulnerable side to Scrooge. He implores the ghost to help him, despite having resisted opportunities to help others earlier in the day. "Speak comfort to me, Jacob." He has a taste of his own medicine when the ghost replies, "I have none to give." From early in the novella, Dickens makes it clear that what we reap, we sow in life, and in order for people to care about us, we must care about them first. The ghost of Christmas past seems to care for Scrooge, and Scrooge returns to an almost childlike state in his presence. When visiting his old school, the ghost describes how Scrooge, a solitary child neglected by his friends, is left there still. At this, Scrooge shows some emotion and cries, and he's similarly moved when reminded of his sister, his former employer, Fezziwig, and his love, Belle, who broke up with him due to his obsession with money. It's apparent Scrooge is starting to realise that it's not only money which brings happiness. Before the ghost leaves, Scrooge again makes it clear he's reflecting on his recent behaviour towards Bob Cratchit. "I should like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now." When the ghost of Christmas present appears, we're reminded that Scrooge's attitude is changing. "I went forth last night on compulsion, and I learnt a lesson which is working now. Tonight, if you've aught to teach me, let me profit by it." He's prepared for the lesson that awaits him. Scrooge is taken by the ghost of Christmas present and shown people celebrating Christmas, including the Cratchit household. Scrooge sees Tiny Tim struggling and sees how the family are able to celebrate despite not having much money. Scrooge implores the ghost to tell him of the future. "Tell me if Tiny Tim will live." He genuinely seems to care about the little boy's fate, in contrast to his early comments about the poor and how if they die it would decrease the surplus population. His attitude is certainly changing. Now, when visiting the house of his nephew Fred, Scrooge is again made to watch those appearing in the vision, enjoying the festivities without him. He enjoys the party and begged like a boy to stay. There's now hope for Scrooge's future, as it's not too late for him to rejoin his family and celebrate Christmas for the first time in many years. No sooner does the ghost of Christmas present disappear than the final spirit, the ghost of Christmas yet to come, takes his place. The shrouded figure appears as a personification of death to warn Scrooge that he's facing a lonely end and further torment if he does not start thinking of others and caring for those around him. Now, initially, this spirit shows Scrooge a group of people who are talking about a man's death. It's likely to be a very cheap funeral, for upon my life I don't know of anybody to go to it. At first, Scrooge can't work out which person has died, and he's then taken to a group who are sorting through his belongings, and the group again talk about the dead man in a very negative way, calling him a wicked old screw. They've even stolen the blanket Scrooge was due to be buried in a similarly uncaring way to the way in which Scrooge acts towards others. Of course, Scrooge does eventually realise that it's the aftermath of his own death that he's witnessing. I see the case of this unhappy man might be my own. And after visiting a family who are pleased Scrooge has died because it means they might have some relief from their debts, and the Cratchits who are mourning the death of Tiny Tim, the spirit takes Scrooge to a churchyard. And here Scrooge reads his own name on a gravestone and realises the sad future that lies in wait for him if he refuses to change his ways. He vows to honour Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. I will live in the past, the present and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach. And at this point the ghost disappears and Scrooge is returned to bed. In the final section of the novella, Scrooge describes himself using figurative language. I'm as light as a feather, I'm as happy as an angel, I'm as merry as a schoolboy. He even laughs. It was a splendid laugh, a most illustrious laugh, the father of a long, long line of brilliant laughs. Scrooge then arranges for a big turkey to be sent to the Cratchits, wishes others a Merry Christmas, then goes to Fred's house for a wonderful party. Already Scrooge is reaping the rewards of making an effort and being friendly to others. Finally, at the office the next morning, Scrooge gives Bob Cratchit a rise in wages, and the final paragraphs of the novella confirm that Scrooge is indeed a changed man. Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. His journey is complete, and we, the reader, are left with the understanding that people can change, and society is a better place if we all look out for one another. I hope you found this video useful. Please do subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up.